Hello and welcome back, and in today's video we are going to be replacing the water pump, because if you were following along with that trip series that we did, I always do this because it's past tense for me, but I guess past tense for you is that way, then you would know that we did experience what we assume at this point is a water pump failure. So let's pop inside and I will tell you, or remind you I guess, of exactly what we've done from a troubleshooting perspective, and then we're going to go ahead and install the new pump, and hopefully we will be able to then confirm all of the signs and symptoms that we were experiencing, that they are indicative of a water pump failure. So should you experience that yourself, then you know kind of what to look for. So yeah, let's do it now. Okay, so we actually have a whole assortment of different parts and pieces for different projects, but Seaflow, the manufacturers of the pump that we have, were kind enough to send us a replacement. According to the little card that they included with the pump, it actually has a four-year warranty, which is wicked. I thought it was only 2 years, but I'm not going to question a good thing. You may, however, notice, though, that the pump itself obviously has the two bare lines here, but let me just pick up the garbage. We have to cut off the existing, they're like a crimp style connector, so no big deal. We just need to pop into the storage, plane going overhead, and grab ourselves a couple of lever nuts, and then we can go ahead and install it. Something I need to do, honestly, I just have been avoiding spending the money, is pick up some lever nuts that are just like the two position that would just sort of bridge or tie one wire into the other. We only have the 3 terminal one that would be like for tapping off of a line, which is, you know, that's exactly what we did when we installed the trailer wire hookup for the bike rack. But yeah, let's grab those lever nuts and then we'll get to installing the pump. Okay, let us clean this out here, or empty it out, I suppose. Good. Okay, so in here, having a look, we can see that this is the existing power coming. This is the trailer side here, and then it goes into this inline fuse, and then it goes into the actual water pump itself. Now, we have 3 options. What we could do is we could go turn the battery off at the little switch. That should cut the 12 volt to the trailer. We could come into the fuse compartment here and we can pull the fuse that this water pump is hooked up to on the 12 volt line on the trailer side. Or we can just make our life really simple and come in here and, I don't know, I say simple, but I remember this being a bit of a faff the last time. Pull out this 10 amp fuse. Actually, you know what I might need to do is get the assistance of some pliers, but we are going to remove this fuse, so then that way when we cut, now we're actually going to be cutting right here, and then we'll strip back this sheath a little bit because we're going to be removing this crimp. Now, could you cut on the pump side? Yes, but then you're going to have a lever nut going into a crimp, going into this, going into it's unnecessary. So, and there's plenty of wire here. It's not like we're short on wire. So yeah, I'm going to cut it on the fuse side, and then yeah, we can go ahead and remove the pump. Now, likewise on the ground line, there we go. We are also going to be cutting it, just this time we're going to be cutting it on the white side, which is the trailer side of the ground here. That way, again, same thing, we can just remove this crimp nut and we can install a lever nut in its place. So should we ever need to get in here in the future, it's much more serviceable than this crimp style. So yeah, let's do that now. There we go. Good. And let's see. There we go. So here. All right. So next up, we want to disconnect the water lines from the pump, and there may be, and slash probably is, water in it. So we want to just be mindful of that and kind of keep it up if possible. So this is just a sort of a lever nut. I'm also anticipating there being some water inside of the actual, so that was just residual pressure in the line, and quite a bit, as you can see. There we go. So we'll clean that up later. There we go. This is loosening. Yeah, let's yeah, it doesn't really make much of a difference now. It's already out, but such is life. Okay. Take the old pump out. Up and out. What's going on here? Something's caught. What is caught? There we go. And then I don't want any water getting into our, oh, use your words, Colin. I don't want any water getting into the wood that is the floor on this trailer. So, yeah. She'll clean that up. Oops, oops. Oops, oops, oops. Alright, cool. Okay, so laying out our old pump versus the new here. That's interesting. It might have actually come out of the wing nut, but we're going to go ahead and remove our rubber end caps here. Yeah, and then we can see we have replacement wing nuts, and that is where that this little rubber grommet came from. So we'll just put that right back where you came from. So let's talk about what we've done up until this point, which is we started by doing the standard like air stuck in the system, which is just simply opening all, each faucet and outlet one at a time, such that if there is any air trapped, that it has the opportunity to purge itself out. That did not resolve our issue. Our issue, of course, is that when we turn on any of the fixtures, whether that's a sink, the toilet, shower, etc., that you have great pressure for about a half a second, and then it's down to a trickle. So then we turned off the water pump, and we opened every fixture and faucet. And what that does, it's called like a back flush, and it will allow the water to pool back towards the pump and purge any air out, because there still could be air trapped somewhere in the system. That did not resolve things. At that point, we checked to make sure that the line from the freshwater tank into the pump wasn't kinked, and we did that by isolating off the freshwater tank and using the winterization siphon tube so that we knew that that wasn't kinked. That didn't resolve it. Then we also had a look at the only few inches of soft line between the pump and where it turns into PEX in the trailer. None of that was kinked or crushed or anything like that. So then we started getting a little bit more invasive, so we disassembled the actual filter assembly. And that's done simply by just unthreading this and checking to make sure that the screen was clear of any plastic or foreign debris. Of course it was, so no problem there. At that point, we wanted to check to make sure that the switch assembly was operating normally. Oops, got to clean that up. And so we removed the top and, well, actually it was more or less just this area. The switch, which is the pressure switch, which means as the pump builds up pressure, it reaches a point and then it will turn the pump off. And that's essentially what keeps your pump from running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week kind of thing. And the switch was not bound, had no like calcium buildup or corrosion or anything like that that would suggest that it wasn't operational. And then we disassembled the entire pump to look for any tears in the diaphragm or something that might indicate that it's not working. And that was all fine. So Through that process of elimination, we effectively concluded it must be something to do with perhaps the internal windings of the water pump, and thus we then reached out to Seaflow, the manufacturers of this, and they were kind enough to send us a replacement. So I'm just prepping these lines here with our lever nuts. There we go. To conclude or summarize, we have isolated the pump assembly, motor assembly itself as the potential cause of failure. So let's go and do everything in reverse, get it installed. I'm not going to screw it down immediately, just on the off chance that for whatever reason the pump wasn't the core root cause of our problems. And we can do a test and see how she goes from there. Cool, let's do it now. So we want to make sure that we don't lose this in our reinstallation process. That goes here, so we can maybe just go ahead and do that first. It was nice that Seaflow's pump included new lever nuts, because you never know if you're, you know, how it was assembled, and if you're stronger than you think and happen to break one in the process. Good. Everything's nice and secure. Let's pop our fuse back in. Is this a 10 amp? Yeah. Good. Cap on. Again, it is not screwed down, so there will be movement as the pump pressurizes, but we're just sort of being lazy, saving the potential having to do it twice work. So let's double check. So we have both wing nuts attached, we have power, we have ground, we have the water flow coming from the freshwater tank, not from the siphon. We know that because this valve is perpendicular to the line, this is parallel. Fingers crossed. That's silent. It's probably priming itself. In fact, maybe what we'll do is we'll turn it off, and then we'll open the tap here so it can backflow towards the pump. Turn it back on again. There we are. So I'm going to go around, we'll check the other faucets, make sure that they're all purged through from there, and conclude in a second. Well, that sucks for us because it's working better than the other one was, but still exhibiting the exact same complete loss of pressure that it was also doing. Interesting. You can hear how long it's running after opening a faucet. There we go. All right, so let's go back and do some troubleshooting. So it could theoretically be that there was maybe an obstruction in the freshwater tank, and the pump burnt itself out by constantly having to pull against that, although I'm not sure why that would have been the case. But let's go ahead and bypass the pump using the siphon for the winterization and remove the freshwater tank out of the equation, see if we get a different result up here. So let's do that now. Okay, so I have the pump more or less secured down, and I need to wash this tote out anyways, so we will then put that in there like this. And so what we're looking for is, now we have the winterization line in the flow position, which is bypassing the tank, which is in the closed position. And let's see if we get a different result. So it's the same result of low pressure coming from this bin. That is strange. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure what the issue is. The only thing I can think of is some sort of blockage maybe in and around the water heater assembly, whereby it can't push. But why would that? I mean, it goes from the pump straight to this faucet. Why would that not be operating normally? This is weird. This is definitely weird. To be continued, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so new day, fresh haircut, and a new theory, which I might have actually just a second ago talked myself out of in the first take on this this video. My theory was that perhaps the pump was not getting its full amperage, and thus, if it was operating at, say, 3 amps as opposed to its rated 8 amps, that it would just take longer at 3 amps to build up that pressure, but it wouldn't have enough amperage to sustain the continuous water flow. My theory, and kind of what I started to do after I turned the camera off yesterday by pulling out some wires and having a quick look, was to look for any loose connections. But of course, the pump is wired up into the pump switch. So what I was about to do is pull off the switch assembly and see if we can't just check to make sure that the connections are all good. And while we're in there, disconnect and pull out that Dometic control unit that's now accomplishing nothing because our wind sensor is gone. So, well, I guess I shouldn't say nothing. There's still the remote control that we have. But in fact, I might even switch it out just to see if that was not part of the awning problem. But that's like a whole other video in and of itself. I digress. Anyways, the reason why I talked myself out of this is because what we can do is we can turn on the water pump and we can see how many amps it's pulling based on monitoring the Lithionics battery app. So unfortunately, I need to use you to do that. But yes, I'm going to test that now and report back to you in a second before I start chasing too many more electrical connection problems that might not actually exist. The second theory, this is a ChatGPT theory, was to do a bucket test where we isolate the trailer and we pour into a bucket. The problem is I don't know if there's going to be enough sustained pressure or flow to actually determine that, but we have a little bit of a bucket. Oh, I forgot to bring the water. I'll rig something up, but yeah, that's our sort of second plan of attack for today, to try to figure what's going on. It's actually getting a little annoying, if I'm being honest. So, okay, first I'm going to run the pump and check how many amps it pulls, and then I will let you know in 2 seconds. Okay, so you will have just seen what I saw, which is that the water pump is only pulling 3 amps, which does validate my theory that perhaps it has a poor power supply. Maybe a connector is coming loose, etc., etc. Before, again, I start pulling off panels to, or even more panels, I should say. I was looking for an obvious solution last night to find just a bad connection. What we are going to do is bypass the existing wiring by locating a hotline. And then, because ironically, we only had those 3 terminal lever nuts, we can simply just apply a constant power, bypassing the traditional power source. And we know, or we would then thus know, that this is a good connection. And at that point, if we can run the faucet again and watch the amperage, we can determine if there's a difference between the two. If there is, and it's much higher with a solid connection, then we know that it's a low power supply issue. If it's pulling this exact same amount of amps, then we know that it's not a power supply issue, and then we can sort of go back to maybe looking for some sort of a blockage, and that's where we would do a bucket test. I'm going to find a constant power and wire it up. So let's do it now. Okay, so there are a bunch of exposed solid copper lines in here, which I'm interpreting to be ground. So I'm going to pop that on a ground and then check it to a ground itself. Yep, nothing. And let's pull this guy off here. Let's check it on. So this is our 12 volt, this is our inverter. So 12 volt would be, this is power here? Yeah. So these are all hot all the time. Oh, this is ground. And then that's power. So ground power. Okay, cool. So that means that we need to add our wire. Is this hot? Yes, it is. And what is that fuse? What's it fuse? This is 10 amps. Okay, so here's an open one right here, 10 amps. And it is hot. Cool. All right, so the pump itself should be fused to 10 amps. And so by plugging it in to the open one here, that is fused at 10 amps. Okay, so here's our plan. We know that on the right, these are all hot. The way that I interpret this to be is that the 12 volt in comes down this board, it goes through the fused line, and then it comes out to the circuits that then go to our respective appliances or pumps or whatever. Now the pump itself is actually on this circuit here, which is actually fused at 20 amps, which is fine because we have our inline 10 amp fuse over here. But because the pump, and it specifically says it right on it, should be fused at 10 amps, it just so happens that we have an open circuit. Let's see if I can identify it. Sorry, gotta get my big head in here. There we go. This one. So this is our open circuit. There's nothing connected, which is why this screw is out as it is, and that is fused at 10 amps. So even though we're bypassing our inline 10 amp fuse, it's still fused at 10 amps here, which is appropriate with the pump. So let us do that now. There we go. Running power. Is this going to be long enough? Yeah, that'll work. What are you? Are you Phillips? Yes, you are. Okay. Sorry for my head in the way. Apologize. There we go. Okay, so now we have fused 10 amp power supply. In fact, we could even, if we wanted to, I wonder if this will, is there a way that I can test? Yep, there we go. So I'm testing on that terminal in there. Perfect. Now, let's run the pump again and monitor the amp pull. All right, as you will have seen, it was pulling the same low amperage, which this. The water goes to, I don't want to call it a trickle, but far from good, right? So, staying with this power theory, my next test that I'm just thinking I'll do is the same thing, but we will do it for the ground, because power needs a full circuit, and obviously this power, the 12 volt supply is good, but maybe it has a bad ground, so it's yeah, can't pull that much. All right, let's do that. Okay, so this is our new setup. So this bar, this bus bar here on the left, that is a ground bus bar, and we can see that because we know that these white are ground, and we can see a white coming in here, but then just for the sake of redundancy, we know that over here is hot, and then if we complete the circuit, that's ground. So we now have this grounded, and we have that ground flowing into here. In fact, we can even go ahead and unplug the white ground and leave that out, just to rule out any possibility of yeah, there being a bad ground elsewhere. So now the pump is grounded straight to the board. We'll go ahead and repeat the process. Well, unfortunately, same thing. So that suggests to me that it's not a power or a ground issue. Having replaced the pump, it's not a pump issue. So one would think that if it was a blockage in the trailer circuit issue, that it would actually be pulling more amps because it would be trying to fight against it. But it seems like it's pulling very few amps. Oh, I was hoping to not have to deal with water today, but yeah, I think we can reasonably conclude that it is not a power or ground supply connectivity issue. We know it's not a water feed issue from the tank. We don't necessarily know if it's a water feed issue through the common T-coupler, though. That could still theoretically be a problem. Or from the water pump to the trailer. That's where the bucket test would come in. Oh, I really didn't want to do a bucket test today. Or at all. Alright. Okay, so here's our setup. We have... This is the outlet line disconnected from the pump, and right now we have the pump still pulling from the freshwater tank, and it will then dispense into said bucket. This will effectively isolate if it's a trailer side issue or an obstruction causing the decrease in flow. So let's go ahead and turn the pump on, and we will have to manually cycle the pump on and off from the switch, because right now it will keep going until it achieves its preset PSI here, and because it's open, it won't. We can, I guess, maybe induce an artificial restriction if that's something we want to do by just blocking it with our thumb. So yeah, let's put this stuff away and see what we get. Not sure if you can see that, but that's like next to nothing. So is this a priming issue? Or is it an issue with that T-junction? Okay, so this is pretty weird because we are not getting any flow, and we've replaced the pump. This is the outlet line. We tested it with this black one. The only thing common is this T-junction here, because this white line here, that one comes from the freshwater tank. This black one is the winterization one that we tested yesterday that determined that there was no change in flow at the faucet side of things. The only thing in common is, if you can see it, it's basically just this T-junction here. I mean, if there's an obstruction before the filter, that'd be strange. That's weird. The only other thing I can think of is to disconnect the pump from the T line, bypassing the T, and then siphoning basically straight into the pump from the bucket. That's the only thing I can think of, so I guess, yeah, maybe we'll try that. Oy vey. Okay, here is the new setup. We have gone under the trailer and used the fresh tank low point valve to fill our bucket here. And I will have to manually hold the this tube in it, because I don't think, will that help? Yeah, it wants to pull up. This tube is feeding into the pump strainer directly, bypassing that T valve. So this will double confirm if there's an issue with the T junction. It's not T valve, T junction, freshwater intake / winterization intake. Yeah, we're definitely running out of sources of issue here. So yeah, let's turn the pump on, and it's priming from our container here. So good. All right, primed, and let it rip. And we can see that it is actually sustaining flow, which confirms it's something in that T valve, that inlet. What? How can that be? So this is what I was trying to show you earlier. We have this T-junction here, and from this T-junction, this white stainless steel braided cable, that is from the freshwater tank. This black one, this is our winterization. So the end is, yeah, right there, we can see it. So it just loops around. When we use this, the black one, as our, let me get that out of your way there, as our water inlet, we experience the same issue than with the freshwater tank. So the only bit in common is right here, which is this T-junction, and we can see in it, and I'm not anticipating there being any obstruction, because, I mean, why would there be? But so far as awkward shots go, this is certainly up there. I don't know if you'll be able to see, quite frankly, anything other than me potentially cutting this wire at the same time. Oh, that would be unfortunate. Not the end of the world though. Just about everything's repairable, but let's see if this will get us what we need. What I'm effectively trying to do here is just cut this clamp off the freshwater fill. There it goes. Okay. Come on now. There's nothing holding it on. Jeez, that's really on there. Trying to be careful not to apply any lateral pressure to this valve so it doesn't just break. There we go. Okay, cool. So this is repairable because we have additional PEX clamps. As we expected, nothing appears to be in there. Okay, here we go. Well, my initial assessment is that there's nothing wrong. I had wondered if maybe when tightening it on, if the seal was sort of getting crushed and like blocking it or something like that. Doesn't seem to be the case. Because this is white, we can see a little bit of light diffusing through it, so I don't see any obstruction in here. And I can see into this way. Just see white. I can't see all the way down to that end. Interesting. Well, I mean, we're in here now. Let's cut this off. So. Try to do this in such a way that we're not sending the metal down the sink. There it goes. Try to ovalize it a bit. There we go. And then slide the old PEX clamp off and dispose. Okay, so now can we see through? Can't. That's weird. I can't tell if it's an obstruction or just that it bends, but I would expect to more or less see straight through. So let's try to poke something through it. Oh, I put those old wires back. Do I have anything? Like a chopstick, but maybe I'll just use these wires. What is going on? Oh yeah, there we go. Oh. That was it? That's what was blocking it. This is what was causing all of our problems. A big goop of silicone. Holy smokes. That must have just been sitting right there in the middle, blocking flow each way.
No way. Can I see through it now? Oh yeah, I can see straight through it now. Winning! That's wild. Are we still recording? I hope so. Yeah. There we go. So this has obviously come from the tank somewhere, and it got pulled up through the freshwater feed line, and then it got jammed in here, right in the T-junction. It couldn't make it through. It didn't get caught in the strainer. No kidding. Well, that's a new one for me. Well, let's get some PEX clamps and put this back together. Okay, well, everything is put back together. We'll keep all these bits and pieces in case something happens in the future. Let's turn on the pump for a prime. Okay. There it is. Let's check the bathroom fixture as well. Proper shower. Look at that. Oh boy. All right. Well, hopefully you found this video and that process valuable in some way, shape, or form. If you did, please consider clicking that thumb up button. It just tells the YouTube algorithm to share this video with other people. Thank you sincerely to all of the new subscribers. This started off as a video for more of an installation, but hopefully, maybe it was of value in terms of helping troubleshoot perhaps a water pump or similar issue that you have going on, and maybe the different ways to try to isolate variables. If you can, I feel like I'm always asking this to all the new subscribers and existing, please let me know what types of videos you'd like to see. I can kind of get a general sense of it based on watch time and which videos people are clicking on, but that can also be skewed based on whether or not I make an attractive enough thumbnail that will stand out in your, in your subscription feed. So yeah, if you can, just please let me know. Are you looking for more tech videos? My heart is really in trying to get better at telling, more cinematic and adventure type videos and stories, but those videos don't seem to do as good as I would like them to. And if they're too long or too boring or not clear enough or whatever, then yeah, just please let me know. And I'll take that feedback and try to improve. So in the meanwhile, thank you as always for watching. I sincerely, genuinely do appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, if you have any questions or comments, just let me know in the comments down below. So until then, you take care. We'll see you in another one, and bye for now. Oh, and if you want to know what's going on with all this stuff, yeah, stick around, stay tuned. If you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. Cool stuff. At least I think so, but yeah. Wonder what all this stuff could mean. All right. See you later.